We're back, and joining me now is Paul Iverson, Dr. Paul Iverson, who is an oral surgeon in Fargo, North Dakota, and here actually representing the memory and the honor that is surrounding your father, Howard Iverson, today as we are celebrating the 2006 Cardinal Pride Hall of Fame. So welcome to you. It's just great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
Now, I understand that not only have you traveled to Willmar to be a part of this great event, but also your siblings, or some of your siblings are here as well. Tell us a little bit about how your family is coming together to help honor the memory and accomplishments of your father.
Janet came from Minneapolis. Incidentally, all four of her children had athletic scholarships. One was on the Duke team, tennis, in the national champions. One was at Northwestern. Two of them were playing hockey in Wisconsin. Kristen came from Kansas City. Her kids also participated in that, and my kids have also, and I'm from Fargo. So we just came together, and we're very proud of getting together with people that we haven't seen for quite a while, and just getting a touch of the community again. It's home.
Well, what a tribute not only to your father, but to the Willmar schools and to the community of Willmar that you have this good feeling about where you grew up and the good start that you had in life as a result of your educational experience here. Well, your father really had to have been quite an individual, a teacher and a coach, 40 years of dedicating his life to young people. What was it like growing up in a household where education was valued to this degree, and clearly your father was what I would call a magnet for children in the classroom as well as on the athletic field?
Yes, but it wasn't just Dad. It was everybody, and nobody had very much. And if you take a look at all of the school teachers, they were exactly the same as Dad. It was all about others, okay? And so was the Joe Martinsons and the Jack Lynches and the media and the Lefty Ranweilers and all of the people. They all came together for the community, and the major part of the community was the kids. So when the kids did well, everybody did well. And it was that type of environment, and nobody had very much. And as a result of that, they got to these extra tidbits of life just by participating in this and through school, debates, things of this nature. And the school was the focus of absolutely everything in the community, school and church, of course.
Well, your dad was an algebra teacher and also coached practically every season, from what I can gather. One sport that really just stands out, of course, are all of his accomplishments with the baseball program and with the baseball team. Talk to us a little bit about what you remember about baseball and your dad's leadership in that regard.
Mostly, somewhere along the line, all of the kids played baseball, softball or baseball. And there were so many different athletic leagues. There was a midget, a junior, a legion, a high school baseball. And all of these had levels that would go up into a state tournament. And I'd mentioned before that I had been somewhere, at least on 6 baseball state tournament outings, and so did many of the others. And so I have no idea from Sandlot to the other teams how many games we played in the course of a year, but it was a stunning number. And we learned, I think, as much from individual activity with each other. Probably a little bit better to win than to lose, but at the same time to be able to pick ourselves up when we did lose. So it was a wonderful way to learn competition, as was all sports. But in baseball, you had to rely on each other so much, and so it was a guiding principle of life, and it sort of turned over to everything.
Well, clearly life's lessons and that character development that happens both in the classroom and out of the classroom throughout the community, and you've really articulated that very, very well. What do you remember your dad sort of treasuring about his experience as a teacher and a coach? What comes to mind when we talk about that?
Pride of kids coming back and excelling, at least in his own mind. kids, when they left here, either stayed home, looked after the family farm, looked after the business, or in some instances they left and they cut an enormous swath. Whether high school class reunion or just watching the people come on back, the accomplishments of some of the students that came out of Willmar was stunning. That wasn't because of Dad. That was in part contributory to Dad. But in all of the other teachers, exactly in the same role, the administration of the high school, like I said, right on down the line, it all came together, and the kids were the beneficiary. And some of those just totally excelled.
Well, as a relative newcomer to Willmar, having been here 12 years, it's just a privilege for me to continually hear about exactly what you're talking about, the people that had such a firm grounding established in Willmar and the great things that they've gone on to do and the great people that they have become. What do you tell your own children, and you've referred to your nieces and nephews, about your dad?
The first principle is literally to care about others and function fundamentally as a team instead of an I. It always comes back a lot more when it's us than me. I think that's a guiding principle of life. The second thing probably is never give up. Because if you get dropped down, if you get knocked down, whatever the case may be, you have to learn to pick yourself up. I think both in academics and in coaching, teaching, athletics, whatever else, I think that's one fundamental thing we were taught, and that's the thing I'd like to make certain my kids do too.
Well, it's just a pleasure talking to you, and clearly you have reflected a lot on your experiences here in Willmar and how that's translated into who you are today. And I really appreciate the fact that you would take time to visit with us as we honor your father's memory and certainly all of the contributions that he has made to the Willmar schools. We love connecting our current students and our current public to the rich legacy that exists in the Willmar schools, and we're just so grateful to Cardinal Pride for providing the vehicle for making that connection. Prior to beginning our taping, we visited just a little bit about some of the conversations that you have had with other Willmar graduates and just the stellar things and exciting things that they have gone on to do. Would you mind just sharing a little bit of those conversations so that we get an inkling of what that was all about?
I'll share one as an example because it's an enormous number. As I've come back to class reunions, I'm awed when I hear the people comments about their life to this point. But I'll tell you what happened the last time I was at the Cardinal Pride. 2 years ago, I sat down with a couple of guys that I hadn't seen in a long time, Duffy Goff and Dwayne Netland, and they used to come over the house a lot with another guy by the name of Jack Strum, and they were all friends of Alan Bachland and that. Duffy Goff, when I began to ask him questions, had become a lawyer and a judge in San Francisco, did a lot of writing and made a big swath. And Jack Strum had gone to West Point, played some sports there, basketball, baseball, left after his commitment, came back to Chicago, and moved to Chicago because his dad had moved there, got a seat on the grain exchange, and cut his own swath. And Dwayne Netland and I began to ask, I said, wow, these friends that you went out with were pretty good kids, and they've developed into pretty good adults. And I said, Nettie, how about you? Well, I was editor, in a bunch of things. I just did a lot for the Minneapolis Tribune, following the Vikings and that. And then ultimately I became the editor of the Golf Digest. This Willmar boy became the editor of the Golf Digest. And I said, you met a lot of people. I said, I knew them all, Jack Nicklaus and all that. And I remember saying, do you know Tiger Woods? He said, yeah, he's a young kid with a lot of talent, but I didn't know him that well yet, okay? And then I said, why don't you guys just do some writing and leave in memory for the people around Willmar? He said, Nettie said, I don't think it would go very well, not like my other books. And I said, what other books? And he said, well, I wrote the book with Bob Hope on Travels with a Hooker, and I wrote the book with Bing Crosby, and he was supposed to write the book with Dinah Shore when she died. And I kept thinking, I'm sitting around the table with these people who have done just an enormous thing that nobody else knows about, because fundamentally, when people do good things, they don't talk about it. And you have to sort of pull it out of them. But these are just simple examples of people who came to Willmar Pride to pay attention to one of their buddies, and here they're relating this story. There's all kinds of stories like that from our system.
Well, I am so appreciative that you would share that, because this is likely to get another conversation going with another person and another person as people collectively celebrate these types of accomplishments. So again, just a pleasure visiting with you, and thank you for sharing this perspective and these insights.
Thank you very much.